Hello and welcome everyone. This is MrSovr here with another video. So I've been starting to upload videos recently with Vampire Survivor. I also want to direct my channel to be code related, so on and so forth. So I got a video idea that I have. I've had roughly 8 years of professional experience as a software developer. And today we're going to go over exactly being a developer in 2022. So there's a lot to talk about here. So I guess I'll just kind of go through the list. I got a list here on my notes just so I stay on track because I tend to do a lot of tangents. So my experience as a software developer started off with Java, C++, and Visual Basic. And this was like way back in middle school when I was like, I don't know how old I was then. Like 13, 14, something like that. I started off with Visual Basic because you could literally drag and drop buttons and you could double click on it to create like an event and have some pop-up come up so you can say something like hello computer and then it'll just pop up saying hello back. So I kind of started off very, very simple with things like that. Then I found Java and C++. Never really got too far in C++. I did make it do some algebra problems for me. Java was a lot more friendlier in a way. I was able to somewhat create like UIs and stuff like that. Nothing really big. Some other languages I got into was TI Basic and also Dark Basic, which are, well, TI Basic is mainstream for like calculators and stuff. I used to make video games off of calculators, and the Dark Basic I'm just going to glance over really quick. It's not like a mainstream programming language. It's a basic syntax language purely for video games. You can do some applications here and there outside of video games, but if you're interested in what I'm talking about, it's outdated. They don't update it anymore, but it's thegamecreators.com. You can take a look at it. They got a new thing for like kind of similar setup, but for like mobile devices and computers called App Game Kit. It's a really cool thing. I have some old tutorials on my channel about it. But moving on, it wasn't until college where I got my first job as a software developer. I worked at the university I went to, and it started off with like .NET, C Sharp, and ASP.NET, obviously HTML, CSS. Did some Cold Fusion, which is in my opinion, a horrible language. It kind of meshes HTML, PHP, and some like back-end random code all into one. I'm not really a big fan of the brackets. You know, the alligator brackets with like if something equals this, then show this tag element. It is absolutely crazy. Some of the stuff in that language that was just pages and pages of just code everywhere. But I got into a lot of that stuff, and from there on, just to hurry up in this little segment I'm on, I got into like front end development, back end development, got into Python, got into Rust, got into Angular, a little bit of React, jQuery, JavaScript, TypeScript, Node, Electron. Java, Spring Boot, did that also. But yeah, like kind of all over the place. But my main strengths are usually .NET and C Sharp. But I obviously expanded quite a bit with like Python for AI and data science and Rust for like more low-level system languages and stuff. Going back into C++, I use Raylib for like I don't consider it like a game engine, but it's like a framework you can work with to like libraries with code and stuff like that. It's literally called Raylib, as in Raylib. It's probably the best library for gaming I've ever seen, at least recently. And they have ports for like C Sharp and Java and other languages. Some languages I want to get into are like Golang. I want to learn more about Rust, become more professional tier with C++, and just overall just be really good at like neural networks and stuff like that with Node, I use Brain.js. For Python, I use PyTorch and TensorFlow. For C Sharp, I use ML.net. So I do use a few frameworks in that area. That's more in my free time, though. On my free time, I do a lot of stuff. But so that's my experience and my history. Let's talk about some basic skills just to get your feet wet in the developer world. So you need to really understand what you want to do. You can go into web development, you can go into systems programming and like embedded systems. You can get into game dev, you can get into mobile app development, you can be a data scientist, be a database administrator, you could be a Windows administrator, which is more like IT stuff, but it's in the same realm. The list goes on and on. There's quite a bit of different jobs you can do and many languages and frameworks to learn. The popular trend at the moment is learning something like JavaScript with React, Angular, Vue, or if you're really special in a good way, use Svelte, which I love Svelte. But again, I've used a lot of Angular and some React. You want to learn some front end stuff with that. You want to know CSS. I know Tailwind is a really popular library, but you can also use like Bootstrap and different ones out there. It's good to know things like Webpack and or some other ones. I guess I use a lot of Gulp, but Gulp is like really not as popular. Excuse me. But I heard Vite, I think, is a new one that just came out. That's kind of like a Webpack, but it's a lot better. But you want to at least have like a front end, back end type thing if you're going into web dev, which a lot of people are again doing JavaScript. They're probably learning some Python, but Node is really popular right now. There is Deno, but it's not as popular. So yeah, you want to grasp a language, learn the tools around it, and learn the frameworks around it. Now, for something like C Sharp, you're probably just going to need to know general.net, the Visual Studio. You want to learn about Git overall with different languages. Version controlling is what it's called. You can learn it with like GitLab or GitHub or Bitbucket. I like GitHub a lot because there's like integrations like ZenHub where you can set your issues, different sprints. You can do like Agile, Scrum type development. You want to learn how to do tests. You want to learn how to do test-driven development. You want to learn how to do unit tests, end-to-end tests. For Node, you can use things like Chai and Mocha and Karma. For C Sharp, there's like integrated unit test projects you can do. Just different things like that. So let me see here. What do I got in my notes? So you want to have a basic understanding of the language, the framework, the tools, and the overall big picture of what you're doing. Like if again, web dev, front end, back end, CSS libraries. You want to maybe learn some LS or SCSS for like different functionalities, a precompiler for CSS to give you more capabilities, give you like more functionality with variables and stuff like that. Flexbox and CSS Grid is good to learn. So you can learn how to like place your elements in different areas. You can do this with Bootstrap also with like rows and columns, but Flexbox and CSS Grid is a lot better. So I guess that's the basic skills. I'm more of a back-end developer than a front-end developer. I know C Sharp and .NET, as I said before, and to get in a lot of experiences that you're going to go through as a software developer, especially if you've done it for like as long as I have for 7 years, you are going to have some experiences and situations that you're going to be in that most tutorials won't teach you. And even me talking about it, it's not going to fully prepare you 100% for what you're going to go through. You're going to have to work with clients. You're going to have to learn how to work with other people. You need to be in situations where you have to go against a little bit of the Agile framework, but you have to get something out immediately and something breaks, and then you have to basically revert or either fix it on the fly. I do not recommend this at all, but it happens occasionally. Usually when you're in a big company, a software company, they have a really, really good Agile system where they have different people peer-to-peer testing with pull requests, which a pull request I guess I'll talk about Git a little bit here, but not that much. I want to do a video about it in the future. But with Git, you have branches. You have the master branch, which holds like the production level code. You have a development branch that's usually for like a dev or staged environment server that you put your code on, or something else if it's not web based or server based. It's like you have like a testing area, and then you have a production area, and then you have feature branches. Like think of it as like a tree with like different branches everywhere. You can create a branch that has a change, a fix, or whatever in it, and then you have people test it through a pull request, which a pull request is basically taking that branch and then merging it into the development branch. And that development branch will then be merged into the production branch. And you explain why you're doing this, what you changed, how to recreate the issue so that people can test it. And then you assign an issue to it. An issue is like, hey, part of this code is not working, and it has a number to it, like issue 100, and you reference that issue to a pull request. So that's a very, very small overview. Sorry about that. Basically, a small overview of how Git works. So again, working with these smaller companies, sometimes you don't get that great experience of multiple people peer reviewing, testing. You got a database guy, you got a front end guy, you got a back end guy, you got a scrum master, which is the person that manages different sprints. So each sprint you have like a number of issues for like a week or two, and then at the end of the sprint you go over and see like how do we improve, what do we get done, what didn't we get done, and then you can do estimates for recording the amount of work you did so the business can realize, oh, they're doing work. So there's that aspect too, but a lot of times there's going to be late night changes that you're going to have to push to dev before you have a PR. Again, don't do this. You can avoid it, but one out of all the times, 1% of the time, probably even less, especially with these small companies, you have to do some janky things to essentially get the code out so the client's happy, and then you can fix something else with that. Now again, I don't recommend this at all, and sometimes the funding isn't there so you can build a better system, better CI/CD. CI/CD is continuous integration, continuous delivery. You can use tools like GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Docker's kind of in that realm. I don't know if I'd consider Puppet. Puppet is basically like a setup tool for IT-based stuff, but it works with projects also. So I guess I'll add it in there too. I don't know as much Puppet. I couldn't do a video on it if I wanted to because I don't know too much about it. But things like Docker, for example, containers and Kubernetes and stuff like that, helps with the environment setup of your project. Instead of like a copy or paste, you get something like Jenkins to go through tests, go through making sure the code works and compiles, and then puts it into the stage environment and eventually in the production environment from your GitHub, automating the process so you don't have to like copy or paste something. So like you're gonna have a lot of situations where there's people fighting on how do we set up something, do we use this language, this framework, so on and so forth. You need to have people skills on top of the software development, and you're going to have to sometimes have multiple hats on. You need to be a DBA, you need to be a tester, you need to be a back-end developer, and sometimes you only have 2 people on a team, something like that. It happens quite often, especially with the smaller to medium-sized companies. Now if you work for Facebook, it's a much more structured system of having everything flow just right. You got one person doing one small change, another person doing another small change. You got multiple people doing small changes of one person doing 20 changes, so on and so forth. But yeah, there's quite a bit of situations where it's just very difficult, and sometimes things just break, and they break for no reason, and you have to figure it out pretty quickly. You have to have a good scientific method of figuring out where the issue comes from. You need to know everything from the data side to the application side. Maybe the data is corrupt. Maybe there's some dirty data you need to clean up. Sometimes you can't clean that up, and that's really frustrating. Sometimes you have to do a migration. You got a prod database, a test database, a dev database, and you have to migrate that. And sometimes there's red tape around that. So you have to have someone else do it. You have to communicate with them, manage different tickets, stuff like that. Again, it matters on where you work, but there are many, many different things you have to manage and have to put together essentially. So I guess I'll go over like pros and cons of a software developer in 2022. So I guess the pros are you do get quite a bit of money. It does help that you jump around every couple of years to kind of grow your income. I feel like it's based on where you're at also for how much money you make, but again, the cost of living in those areas are really high, so it's like I could live in like LA and get like I don't know 200,000 from Google, but I'm spending like 60% of that just to live somewhere. So like, and you could probably live in the middle of nowhere and have a remote job and then make like 80K, but you're only spending like 20% of that living somewhere. So it really matters on like where you are and where well, not where, but like well, yeah, where you work essentially. So there are many different pros to like making money compared to like a ordinary office job or something like that. The thing I do like about software is remote work. Remote work is really great. It does help once in a while to go into your office because you know you want to meet people and stuff like that. But you can do 100% remote. Um, with remote, you get to kind of manage your time a little bit better. You can get everything done in a short period amount of time, and then just as long as there, like you know, maybe there's a meeting later on or something like that. But you can get everything done, so the rest of your day you can do other stuff. It's good to not overwork yourself in those situations because I've done that before, and it could be quite frustrating to say the least. And I feel like in certain jobs you don't want to overdo it because then people realize, oh, this person could do all this stuff. Let's put more work on him or her. Um, so you do want to kind of avoid that. But I guess the pros are remote, making a lot of money, again, based on where you are. And other pros are it's on the computer. So you can have YouTube on the side as long as you get your work done. Why not? I know that there are some companies that are a little strict about that, but a lot of the jobs I worked at, you can have YouTube on the side. You can have music in the background. You can kind of do like as long as it's appropriate stuff for work environments and it's not interfering with your work. It's usually pretty good. Um, so yeah, a lot of things with on the computer that you can usually not do at other ordinary jobs, especially with a lot of physical labor based jobs, which um, I guess I'll go over. Well, there are a few more pros. If it's something that you really like and it's software based, you can build your portfolio very easily to show other companies and other people that you can do things. You always have a record of the work that you do, and you can use the knowledge that you learn through your work for personal projects to further invest into your skills and techniques, and again show off to other people, whether if that is for just credentials, another job, or just reputation in the community. It can be really good to build onto your skill set and everything. I guess for cons would be one really cheap con to just put out there is that you do a lot of sitting. There are companies that do allow or do give you stand-up desks, so that could be resolved pretty easily there. But cons are you usually get a lot of work. You're expected to do a lot of work at some places, and it could get a little tedious over time with certain things like data, stuff like that. Again, it matters on what you like. If you like data, if you like searching through millions of rows of data, even though you automate a lot of things through SQL and stuff like that, it could be fun. It's not really my thing. I like the back end development stuff. I like some front end stuff too. Other cons are usually let me think here. I guess some cons are is that, like, again, this matters on your CI/CD, matters on your agile development, whether you have tests or not, but the process of getting something to work can be really difficult and frustrating. It's really tough because a lot of stuff change a lot of times. Like, don't get me wrong, the fundamentals are still there. C sharp is still C sharp, but each version, new libraries coming out, all this stuff, you have to learn a lot of new things. Like, for example, .NET Framework to .NET Core to .NET 5 and 6, and moving over from web forms to MVC to Blazor and stuff like that, and using WebAssembly. And it's just like, and don't even get me started about JavaScript. JavaScript is crazy. Whether you have to learn all these frameworks, you have to learn all these libraries, all these different ways to code. There's like new add-ons all the time. You get like, I think it was like ES6, they had classes and things like that, and await, which I guess if you already know other languages that uses it, it's not that bad. But JavaScript and TypeScript, and you get all these different transpilers, compilers, different ways to package things, minify things, concat things. You can learn things like the Google Closure compiler and how to set that up to like an advanced minimization of code and to make it very efficient. There's again Node and Electron, and then there's NPM, the Node Package Manager, and needing to know all those different packages for like the job that you do. And then you go to a different job, you have to learn something else. You go to another job, you have to learn something else. Another con would be, especially with medium to small sized companies, you might have to do things that are not on your job application. Like, there's been times where I had to do things that are not .NET, even though it's hard for .NET. And you have to not only learn how to code, but learn how to code. If that makes sense. You have to figure out how to be good at problem solving. You can always look up the syntax for something, but, and I guess this could be like a pro and a con, because it could be very rewarding, it could be really fun, but again, it matters on what you like to do. If you're just getting to coding just to code and make a lot of money, or not just to code, but make a lot of money, then don't do it. Like, I guess you could a little bit, maybe it's like a freelancing on the side, but even then, freelancing is pretty horrible sometimes. Like, it's not gonna be fun, you're gonna be miserable. So yeah, it's just, if you love the code, then code and you'll do great, essentially. If you don't like the code and you want it for the money, it's not going to work out. So again, there's a lot of things you have to learn. You have to keep on learning over and over and over again. There's certificates, there's things that are changing. There's like AWS and Azure certificates that you have to learn now, where before it was just like, oh, these other certificates that are out of date. It's just like, it's crazy. But again, if you like it, it's fun and definitely very rewarding if you like to do that type of stuff. So those are some pros and cons, just kind of a little bit of tangents here and there, but overall pros and cons about being a developer in 2022. I guess I'll have my conclusion here. I really like programming. I've been a programmer for a long time. Started off with electronics, then got into like game development, then learned different languages, and eventually got a job. Had some courses in high school and college that really propelled me a lot. I did have one course in college that was like object oriented programming 1 and 2, and I've been in programming for so long that even with those courses, I would never attend the courses, and I'd still get like almost a 4.0. I would only go there for the exams and the labs, and that was it. So yeah, I started really young, really like it, and I'll probably be programming till the day I die. So not in a way where I'm like can't retire or anything, but you know, it's just that much fun. Like, as soon as I'm done programming for my work, I program for myself. Don't worry. I have social group, I have friends, I go on dates, stuff like that. So I'm not one of those type of people, but I definitely do like to code like maybe like 12, 14 hours a day. It's so much fun. But thank you for watching my video. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification. If you dislike the video, let me know why in the comments so I can improve my videos. And I will see you guys later.